So, what actually happens to human biology when it gets way too close to a UAP? For decades, whenever we talked about this topic, it was always about blurry lights in the sky or grainy photographs. But what if we completely flip the script? What if we look strictly at the undeniable clinical trauma left behind on the human body?
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so pumped to have you with us today. We're jumping straight into a totally data-driven look at the declassified medical impacts of anomalous aerospace tech. We're stripping away all the science fiction stuff, and we're looking purely at peer-reviewed medical reports, forensic pathology, and defense intelligence to unpack this massive medical mystery.
Section 1. The Cash-Landrum Close Encounter. Objective Injuries.
Picture this. It's December 29, 1980. You're driving down a pitch-black highway in the piney woods of East Texas. Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and 7-year-old Colby had to slam on the brakes because a massive, diamond-shaped craft was literally hovering right above the trees. And it was blasting explosive fire and insane amounts of heat. The sensory details here are just wild. The heat was so intense they felt like their faces were literally burning. In fact, when Vicki touched the dashboard to steady herself, the vinyl had softened so much that it left a permanent handprint. Oh, and hovering right around this massive craft? 23 twin-rotor Boeing CH-47 Chinook helicopters.
Okay, let's trace exactly how this played out, because this wasn't just brushed under the rug. The victims suffered severe medical trauma, and it kicked off a massive wave of official government inquiries. By August 1981, they were sitting down with the judge advocate at Bergstrom Air Force Base. By September, the Texas Department of Health was out there taking soil samples. And by 1982, the Department of the Army Inspector General, the DIIG, launched a full-blown investigation to figure out if U.S. helicopters were involved.
Now, that Army investigation ultimately concluded that no U.S. military helicopters were involved in the incident. But listen to this quote from the lead investigator, Lieutenant Colonel George Saran. He found the victims to be completely credible. He flat out said he had absolutely no reason to believe they were lying to him. The physical trauma they endured was undeniable, and it was grounded in hard reality, even if the source itself remained unidentified.
Section 2. Declassified Investigations and Intelligence. The Military Understanding.
Now this is where things get really fascinating. Our major turning point is a declassified 2010 report from the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA. This document actually formally acknowledges that anomalous field effects cause severe trauma to human tissues. And this isn't based on rumors, right? It's literally built on 42 peer-reviewed medical reports and 300 unpublished injury reports. It establishes a huge documented clinical baseline for all of this.
To really connect the dots between abstract UAP sightings and actual clinical trauma, the DIA report details some very specific cases. For example, 3 perfectly fit antenna engineers suffered what's called an anomalous near-field exposure. Basically, they were accidentally hit with a broadband ultra-high radio frequency centered around 785 MHz. The result? Severe erythema, which is intense skin redness and heat, along with hair loss and even partial paralysis. This proves we're dealing with quantifiable physics causing direct medical harm.
Section 3. The Biophysics of Anomalous Trauma. Building a peer-reviewed framework.
So, what's actually happening on a biological level? It hinges on something called NIEMR. That stands for non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. Now, unlike ionizing radiation like X-rays that actually break atomic bonds, NIEMR involves incredibly high-intensity radio frequencies or microwaves. When an anomalous craft emits these extreme, highly modulated fields at close range, they cause severe biological trauma, cellular disruption, and intense thermal burns. Again, we are completely leaving science fiction behind here and stepping right into clinical biophysics.
It's like a domino effect in the body, unfolding in a brutal step-by-step process. Step 1, an extreme optical and electromagnetic power output hits the person. Step 2, the human body's natural thermoregulation system is completely overwhelmed. It basically mimics severe clinical heat stroke. And then step 3, that massive rapid rise in core temperature causes severe cellular dysfunction, metabolic stress, and eventually tissue necrosis, which is cellular death.
Section 4. Diagnosing UAP-induced human injuries. The physical aftermath.
Medical professionals actually break this trauma down into 2 distinct phases. First, there's the acute phase. This happens immediately. We're talking hours to days after contact. Victims show erythema, thermal burns, intense blistering, red eyes, and serious neurological disorientation.
Then comes the subacute phase, which hits days or weeks later. That's when we see the severe hair loss, localized tissue necrosis, and even structural white matter damage in the brain. Think back to Betty Cash from the East Texas encounter. Her doctor, Brian McClellan, diagnosed her with symptoms that exactly mirrored severe radiation poisoning, perfectly matching these devastating subacute conditions.
Now, here is a detail that I found absolutely fascinating. The type of trauma actually varies depending on the specific group of people exposed. Highly exposed military personnel, like pilots, frequently suffer highly targeted neurological traumas. We're talking structural damage to the brain's white matter and altered blood-brain barriers. But the civilian public, they tend to present with much broader thermal burns, severe erythema, and acute gastrointestinal distress. It really seems to depend on the proximity and the exact nature of those radiative emissions.
Section 5. Rising reports near sensitive sites.
And if you're thinking this is all just historical data, look at this incredible trend from recent Department of Defense ARO data. Between 2004 and 2021, a 17-year stretch, there were 144 documented cases. But then, in just a year and a half between 2021 and 2022, that jumped to 256 new reports. And the real kicker, in just a 13-month window from May 2023 to June 2024, an astonishing 757 new UAP reports were filed. The frequency isn't just growing, it is exploding.
But I really want you to focus on this exact number for a second. 18. Out of those recent reports, 18 very specific incidents happened in or around highly controlled, highly sensitive areas. We're talking nuclear facilities and missile launch sites. These phenomena are concentrating around advanced military installations, and that creates a highly complex electromagnetic environment that poses real, unquantified health hazards to the folks stationed there.
Section 6. The Future of UAP Forensics. A Systematic Response.
So how do doctors even begin to impartially diagnose these unique biological injuries? They have to lean on advanced neuroimaging and forensic tools. We're talking structural MRIs and fMRIs to quantify white matter damage. We need diffusion tensor imaging, or DTI, to assess structural deficits in the brain. We need microscopic histological exams of skin biopsies to spot cellular necrosis, and standardized blood tests to catch extreme oxidative stress. Ultimately, we have to treat this with the exact same rigorous, destigmatized science as any other environmental hazard.
Which brings us to a massive question. If highly modulated anomalous energy fields are leaving undeniable physical trauma on the human body, trauma we can image, biopsy, and quantify, how on earth will modern medicine and global intelligence adapt to diagnose what we can't yet definitively identify? The physical evidence is staring us right in the face. What you should absolutely take away from this explainer is that treating this topic as mere folklore, that era is over. This is now an urgent, interdisciplinary medical frontier. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep asking those tough questions, and always follow the data.